evening. Let me check the volume here. We got a problem here. Oh, make sure I fixed it. Alright, so that should fix the volume. Good evening, everybody, guys and gals. It's happy Tuesday, Tuesday Night Live. I don't know if you guys got a chance to see, but we dropped a new video on the AMC 4.0 liter straight 6 turbo motor that I assembled. I'm still fighting with those engine or any kind of assembly videos. You guys, if you mind, in the comments or in the chat, either one, let me know what you think about it. You know, my first couple that I did, we did time warp and showed the entire thing and stopped at, you know, poignant moments. People said they didn't like the time warp when I did some surveys, so I got rid of that and just kind of jumped forward, and people liked that. But a buddy of mine just saw a T5 transmission video the guy did. It was quite long, 45 minutes long, but what he did was he filmed the entire engine, the entire transmission build, and then took a long time and edited it down to where it was just the appropriate moments. I haven't got a chance to see the video yet, so I want to look and see what he did. My buddy was impressed that he was able to get a lot of information out of that. So that's my goal here, is to get as much information available to you guys as I can. So, you know, if I need to do change the way the videos are, I will. I mean, that's what I'm, you know, it's a learning curve. I don't know what, you know, a lot of people tell me they want to see a short video, so I make them short. And other people say they want to see a long video. Yeah, so I guess kind of finding my way through this. So just let me know. I see Bill's on. Hey, Bill. Got to work on those TPS switches for you. Once I know exactly which one it is, whether it's that Motec or the Haltech ones, I will see if I can locate a vehicle that they came from, a vehicle application, so we can get them instead of buying them through another ECU company, because they're not building them, they're just relabeling them. But so yep, Bill was up to the house this week. Well, actually it was last week, and I apologize once again, Bill. I made you guys wait a long time. I got hung up in some jobs before that, but we got oh, it is the Motec one. Okay. We took his hot rod around, and took me a minute to figure it out, but the TPS was going nuts, and that's what was causing the drivability issues. So we're working on getting a new TPS for that. 4200 update. ATP says they want us to pressurize the charge pipe. So I did a smoke test to the exhaust and to the intake. Typically a smoke test will show, because it'll get through cracks and everything else, which showed that there was no leaks. But talking with the turbo technicians at ATP, they want to see it pressurized. I get it. They want to see if there's a cracked seam on the intercooler or the intake manifold that's opening up under pressure. So I had to hand the information over to Leo, and asked him if he could please get some help over there and try to figure out how to pressurize it. I gave him some ideas about plumbers have test plugs they stick in the end of pipes and can pressurize them, and then pressurize the pipe to see if there's a leak. So I told him, let's see, maybe he knew somebody or knows somebody that knows somebody that's a plumber and might have some of those, so they can work on that, so they can pressurize the intake port, cool side charge ports, whatever you want to call it, up to about 30 psi to make sure there's no leaks on that thing. And then we'll see where that goes. We were supposed to go test at Bradenton on the 19th, which if we get Bill's TPS working properly, we'll be over there testing with his car. And I'm not sure if we're going to be there with Leo's, because I just don't know if he's going to get the information and then have ATP give us an evaluation of what they think our issue is. I don't know. It could still be the exhaust housing, the shape of the where the wheel meets the housing. I don't know. That's why we referred back to them. In their discussion, they said we could use the same housing, so I'm hoping we can, but we are having an issue with boost, so we'll see where that goes. Next weekend is Mother's Day weekend, so I'm gonna be back out of town again. I gotta fly up to Ohio and see my mother-in-law. Hopefully she's not listening, or any of the other family up in Ohio, because it's supposed to be a surprise. Sorry. But anyway, I'll be out of town. I'm not going to say where I'm going, but I'm going to be out of town next weekend. So I won't be able to go over to Arcadia and help Leo diagnose his issues. So we got the AMC video out. And like I was saying before, trying to figure out the best way to lay out these videos. I got a couple different engine videos, engine assembly videos, and a transmission assembly video on the channel. Check them out, and leave some comments in the videos, or come back next week for the chat, for the live show, and we can discuss which way you guys would prefer to see it. A little longer video with a lot more explanation and seeing everything being assembled, or just seeing the key points. And we can kind of, I'm going to get ready to do the engine assembly for the NASCAR. So I've got another engine assembly to do here in the near future. So be good to try a different approach on that one. See which way works the best. But yeah, kind of excited to get Bert's car in here and get the engine in. Since I've been working on his car, it's been 2 cylinders have been way down in compression. Actually, number 1 cylinder was almost no compression, and number 2 probably had about 60 psi, and the other cylinders are at 150, 160. So the car's been underpowered for quite a while, and pumping oil, obviously, you would think, because of broken pistons, but it still ran, and so Bert's been kind of limping it around, a little back and forth from work to home, and a couple car shows a while ago, but he's kind of laid back on even driving it anymore, waiting for this engine. So be very interesting to see what as far as I know, what a real engine built for boost is going to be like in his car. We did some tricks to the cylinder head using LS valves, so we were able to open the seats and the intake and exhaust bowl area to get some more flow. And we have a cam that should be pretty good for boost, and it's got forged pistons and DSS forged pistons and scat good rods, so should be good. Yeah, Mike, I see you're on. Yes, that is Bert from Lakeshore Auto Body. Yep, his little purple demon. So he loves that little car. I told him he's gonna have to start work. He should be working on the brakes and stuff, because now it's gonna be making some power where he's gonna really need to start using the brakes. And hopefully we don't overpower the transmission. But we'll get the motor in and then see where we're at. The engine that's in the car now is a 4.2. So we're going a little bit smaller on the engine, and of course he bought the car with the engine and the turbo already on it, so we really don't even know what is in the engine. But being that it's broke 2 pistons, I would assume that it was probably a stock engine. The turbo kit isn't anything; it's something home built. And all they did was they put a 4-liter EFI intake on it to put fuel injection on it. They did put a Holley HP, so I mean that was a good thing. But before I got working on the car, they had some issues. Somebody switched the TPS and the map sensor connectors. I guess they didn't know what they were doing with Holley systems. They are the same connector, so they would interchange. But that's what broke it. Mike says Lakeshore Body were one of my first jobs after high school. I didn't know that. That's pretty cool. You know what? I did know that. Now that you say that, I do remember you telling me that you worked for them back in the day. So, yeah, they're good people over there. Bert's dad, I think, was the original owner, and then Bert took it over years ago, and he's recently sold it and retired. So, good for him, and perfect. Now we'll get the Gremlin running good, and he'll be able to enjoy going to car shows and cruising and doing all that stuff with that car, and hopefully without any issues or anything like that. I didn't get that picture off my phone, Mike, that you had sent me, but you guys, the regulars on the show, you know Mike comes on. We used to work together. He works up in the Jacksonville area, GM Tech, and he sent me another picture of another wiped out cam, bad lifters on a, I think it was a 5.3. But yeah, the lifter turned, and it turned into a lathe and just ate the cam lobe up. And I think it was a pretty low mileage motor. I don't remember all the notes and stuff off the top of my head, but crazy. And thank you, Mike. He found us a 08 4200 motor with a spun rod bearing, so another core motor for extra parts for Leo's car. If we do build a second engine in the future, the 06 up head is a much better cylinder head than the early head that we're running currently. So it'd be interesting down the road if Leo decides to see it through, that we would build our own engine and get away from this self-race engine that we have in the car now. Mike says, yes, it was a 2019 5.3, 56,000 miles on it. It's crazy how much problems we've been hearing about on new vehicles. That used to not be the case, especially hard brakes like that. I mean, a lifter turning and then wiping a cam out. That's bad. But yeah, so this week I've been working on Rihanna, getting close to getting that thing done. Unfortunately, the chassis guy did a really beautiful job building the chassis, and some of the fitment of the fiberglass parts in the back of the car are really good, but he didn't finish the front of the car, and it's really aggravating to me because the doors don't really feel real good on it. They're sagging off the hinges, and the front fenders weren't fitting right. They were catching when you open the doors, and of course there never was a hood on it. So I go to put the hood on, and first of all I realized the hood was extra long, so we started trimming the hood up, and then I decided to stop until I got the front end straightened out, and I did that. Let me show you what I'm talking about. That's something I was going to show you in a minute. Kind of got ahead of myself here. So this is not the chassis builder's fault, but the car had headers built, and the guy built the headers, cut that C notch around the bullhorn, but didn't think about there's a big inner fender flap, so you can't slide the front end forward to get around the bullhorn. You got to lift it up. So I had to cut the bottom of the fender off and make the bottom half of the fender permanent, and then the top half Zeus on, which allowed me to fix the door jam openings, the door openings on the fender. They're not hanging up anymore. So the close-up of what we did. Unfortunately, I had to cut the fender after the car was already painted. Nothing I could do about it. But you could see down here, if you guys look close, I don't know if you're on the phone or on TV, you'll probably be able to see it easy. But there's already a crack in the panel from just once or twice taking the front end off. So we did that. There's a skeleton I built off the base of the door jamb, or the A-pillar, lower portion of the A-pillar. And then I made this rod go down to triangulate it, but it also allows the fender to open up to slide down over top of it. So it made the front end real easy to get on and off. You can, with the hood off, you can do it with one person. So that was working out pretty good. There's the other side. I don't have the rivets in that side yet, but yeah, so we got that done. But the hood fitment, I put a lower spoiler. It's hard to see in this picture. It's really dark, but I installed an ABS chin spoiler on the front of the car. That took a little bit of work because it's ABS going into fiberglass, and you know, between the speed of the car and, you know, if you're racing into a headwind or whatever, I don't really know how fast the car is going to go, but I just figured I tried to engineer it so in my head it would be good for like a 200-mile-an-hour deal. I don't know how fast the car is going to go, but hopefully I got it mounted well. I've seen those rip off in the past, so hopefully we'll see how this one goes once we get running the car. And I just got a couple extra pictures of the car sitting. Got a real good stance. Can't wait to see the thing on the track. So yeah, so that was the work there. But anyway, so one of the things I was talking about is the chassis guy I obviously never put the front end of the hood on the front end, because now that I've got the edges sanded so it fits in the step in the front clip, it fits at the front of the front end behind the header panel, but it gets the fenders go narrow as they go back. So the fender's sitting on top, the hood is sitting on top of the fenders in the back. So now I'm gonna have to sand that down. Again, not a big deal, except for the car's already painted. So, now I gotta go into the paint and sand, and just aggravating to me that, this is stuff that should have been done months ago when they had the car. Why, if you mounted the front end, why you wouldn't test the hood to see if it goes on, I have no idea. And then the other thing that I had to do, let me go back here, is I had to build these pieces because he didn't put a stock size windshield in the car. He cut the windshield where he saw it fit to be. Well, now the hood wants to fall down behind the windshield because it's higher than, it should have went way lower in the front. So I had to build these plates that'll attach to the glass, and then also have a pencil rod going down to the firewall to help support it, and put Zeus's there, which the hood needs Zeus's by the center anyway, just to keep it flat at high speed. But just, a lot of this could have been worked out way before I got the car, so more stuff I gotta straighten out. Aggravates me. And of course, it's not something I do every day, so it takes me 3 times longer to do it because I got to engineer it, got to figure out what, how I'm going to work it and stuff like that. 20 years ago when I did a lot more chassis stuff, I'd have probably been a lot faster at it. Of course, back then I didn't have to wear glasses, and I didn't have to have a lens in my TIG helmet, so all those things makes it more difficult. But anyway, I'll stop complaining. I'm glad to be able to help out, and hopefully the car we'll get the car all straightened out, and it'll be real good. and we'll go from there, you know. So a couple of other things I was working on this week. I was going to try to put the engine together for the NASCAR this weekend, but my wife kind of wanted me to get the golf cart fixed. We use that when we go camping, haul our kayaks around and stuff, and it's kind of like her hot rod, so to speak. You know, I have all these toys, and so the golf cart's kind of like her toy. Back in the day we used to have 4-wheelers and mud buggies and stuff like that, but now we just more cruising and stuff like that. So I'll show you some pictures of that. So that's her golf cart. I put it on. We put 22-inch tires on it and a little all-terrain, and put a lift kit on it. Let's see here. Oh, I gotta switch screens here for a second. So yeah, so that's one of the cool things I did with that. Yeah, now I can go back. Why my mouse isn't sticking? Sorry about that. So yeah, so there's the golf cart. She bought seat covers for. She's got street legal headlights and taillights, turn signals on. I got to put on yet, but I think we're gonna wrap it first. Yeah, she's got black and red with diamond stitching on it. I got a T-top style top with a canvas top for the full length, which still has zip ties hanging off. You do that to stretch it out, and I got to get the string on that. But that's one thing. So the big problem with this thing is the lead batteries were always going dead, always. I'd stick it in the trailer, let it sit for a couple weeks because we're in between. You know, we're racing, we're doing other things, we're not camping, and then you go pull the golf cart out and it's dead. And it was a pain, and I got to the point where I was just done with it because I had a gas golf cart. She didn't like that because it smelled like gas and exhaust. So I get it, and that worked real well for at the racetrack, but this is hers. So I got our electric one. So we went ahead, I pulled the trigger, and I did a lithium-ion battery, kind of like what we use in the race cars. Very impressed with this battery. I got it on the Amazon, but it had 400 or 500 reviews. Everybody giving it 5 stars and 4 stars. I think it had 3 1 stars out of all the comments. So I felt that was pretty cool. That battery weighs less than 70 pounds, and anybody that's worked on golf carts, the lead acid batteries are like 68 to 72 pounds a piece. I had the Trojans in there, which were the better battery, and they were 72 pounds a piece. So the golf cart got 300 pounds lighter. It actually wants to peel out or spin the tire when you punch the throttle for a split second, especially in the grass. It'll do a pretty good job in the grass. But yeah, so it was really good, and it made the under seat area almost like a trunk. So I'm gonna do some wire tightening up and make a cover for the switch panel over there. So it will be actually a storage area now when we're done. So we're camping and want to go to a store and buy something, we can throw it all in there and do that. So it was funny. We were, the last couple episodes of the live show, we were talking about suspension, and man, it was funny. So this front end, it's got it off of eBay. I think it was like $70, and it says clearly in the instructions, 6-inch lift and lengthens the wheelbase. Well, I envisioned, yes, so you're going to make a positive caster, and that's going to move the front wheels out. Yeah, Bill says, I got to take care of Mama. She needs toys, cool toys. Yes. Yep, got to keep, happy wife, happy life. That's mottos to live by, guys. I mean it. My wife is the bomb. She lets me do whatever I want to do, and I try to take good care of her because of it. So anyway, so I get this kit out, and I was working on this on Sunday, and I was trying to get it done. Had it all apart in the shop. Can't move any of the jobs in the shop because this thing's all blown apart in the only available free spot I had. But the rear lift kit is just you flip the leaf springs to the top of the axle. So that was pretty cut and dry. I got all new bushings and everything for the back end while I was there. Piece of cake. Had that knocked out in, I don't know, hour. And that was only because a lot of the bolts were rusty. I had to chase a lot of threads before I could get it all apart. This golf cart's 2000, so it's 24 years old. So you can imagine, whatever its past life was, it's, it was rough. So anyway, I get to the front beam, and I lay it on. It bolts onto these leaf springs here, and it's got negative camber. The beam is pointing back towards the fenders, and I had these tires on without the lift, and the tires hit the fenders. And I'm like, this cannot be right. First of all, you don't want negative camber, a negative caster on the front end. You want positive. So, I went back to the eBay site, and it definitely clearly said lengthens wheelbase, so I knew it was wrong. I was gonna ask for a return, but I was like, I already got the golf cart apart. Screw it, I just cut the mounts off and put them on. So they had these tabs at 7 degrees the wrong direction. So I went ahead and put these in at 12. You can see the inclination of the kingpin on the front wheel, so it steers really good. And right now the cart's going almost 17 miles an hour, and I'm going to put a high-speed motor in it, so it'll probably be up in the low 20s. So you want it to handle pretty good, because you don't want to start going fast and have crazy stuff. But anyways, that was just something played around with on Sunday for the wife. So that was a venture. Probably took me another hour and a half to get to make a fixture to get that all lined up and everything, but worked out really well. Got some work going on Mike's Trans Am too. I got one picture on that. I didn't get it down off the lift yet, but there's the rear brake lens. Kind of hard to see. I should have got a light on it, but we put Willwood brakes all around it. Now I got all the brakes plumbed. I was trying to bleed the brakes last week, and only had one section of factory hose from the body to the T on the rear axle. I couldn't get any fluid back there, so I decided, or figured that hose probably came apart, and it could have even been some of the braking issue before. I didn't really drive the car too much. Mike just said it had bad brakes. So I put new stainless line on there, and all the stainless lines across the rear end housing, and gravity bled within minutes of me getting it all back together. So that all worked out real well. Hopefully I get Rihanna 2.0 finished with the hood tomorrow, or by Friday anyway. That way next week I can get back on Mike's car. I gotta put a shifter cable on it, get the shifter worked out, put the Dakota gauges in it, and then just finish up a little punch out list. I already did the exhaust system, so hopefully there's no rattles there. I already put the new hangers in and set that all up. So I think I'll have that thing knocked out hopefully in the next week following, and then I can get back on the wiring on Dave's car. And again, with our discussion about engine assemblies earlier, that's going to hold true for that wiring video too, of how we should proceed with time lapse, no time lapse, whatever. Obviously, I want to try to get key points in. I've got a bunch of stuff in my head, and started out with laying out. I use the spreadsheet to fill in where all the parts are going, all the components are, and the color wires they go. So, just to try to get his car done, get all the pieces of information that I normally do, and then to get it to make sense in a video. So that'll be something. That video probably won't be done till mid-June, but we're gonna work on it. That's what we're gonna work on. So that's pretty much it. This week I was basically just gonna give shop updates. the current projects we have in the shop have been taking a while, so it's kind of slowed me down on getting a lot of other stuff done, and I really didn't get. I have to come up with another series of tech videos to do coming up. We're nearing our 1 year point. This is episode 44, so what's that? 8 videos away, 8 weeks away from a full year of videos. So try to come up with some good stuff for that. Plus, obviously, keep up with updates and stuff like that. Another update. We haven't talked about this in quite a while, but Scott's C60 Chevy Allneck race car hauler. It's an old vintage race car hauler from the 70s. Some guys that ran, I think it was Comp Eliminator, Alt and James out of Dayton, Ohio. They had a big machine shop up there. Jerry Alt, and I forget what the James guy's first name was, but Scott purchased their old race rig, and there's pictures of it all over the internet because it's been out to California and it's been around the block, and so he's gotten it and he's fixed up a bunch of stuff on it. We redid the interior, we did new gauges, and he had the cab painted, and he's in the middle of redoing the enclosed car hauler part of the truck. And we've used it a couple times. We took it to Bowling Green to LS Fest in 22, and we had his Corvette in the back, and we had my trailer, my 28-foot trailer with my Chevy behind it, and the little 366 big block. Even though that was a good workhorse engine, the gearing and everything isn't the best for modern highways. Flat roads, you could get it up to about 70, drinking fuel pretty good. But as soon as you got into any kind of incline, any kind of great hill or a grade, you could really feel it pulling down on the engine. I mean, it's a little, even though it was a big block, it's a little engine. So a while back, we found a used 8.1 Vortec big block Chevy. Everybody calls it the big block LS, and Allison automatic transmission. So that was our goal, was to put that in the truck. Well, pulled the motor apart and ended up having spun rod bearings, spun main bearings. The crank was pretty much done. 4 of the connecting rods were beyond repair. So we went ahead and got all the components from Go Racing to rebuild the engine. And we took the engine block and all the components to a engine shop that we use. Found out, I had to get another crankshaft for it, but they let us know, unfortunately, quite long after they received it, but still not even make contact on 3 of the mains. So a couple weeks ago, I found another 8.1 Vortec up in South Carolina. Guy has a tire shop, and talked to him for a little bit. Got a real good feeling from him that he was, giving me a straight talk, and we picked the block up and he had it shipped to us. Well, it worked out fantastic so far, because the first engine that we had received didn't have the fuel rails and didn't have any wiring harnesses or any of the sensors on the engine, which I didn't feel was a big deal. But start looking around, and the fuel rails, people are getting $900 on eBay for fuel rails for these engines. There was some at $600, but most of them were over $800. And I was like, wow, that's more than we paid for the entire engine. So lo and behold, I get this engine shipped in, and I check it out, and this engine had the coil harnesses on it. It had coils on it. All the engine sensors were on it. And it had the fuel rail and injectors and the injector harness. So that was a great surprise, because now when we put the Holley Terminator system in it, it's going to be a plug and play on most of those components. I won't have to build the sub harnesses. So that was really good. I didn't get the engine tore apart yet. I'm going to do that tomorrow. Hopefully, this one does not have a spun main bearing, and we'll have a good block to use. So we'll see. But this motor was only 90,000 miles. He took the truck to the dealer to fix an oil leak, and they didn't fully seat the oil cooler line in, and it knocked the cooler line off. And as soon as the oil pressure dropped, the guy shut it off, and they plugged it back in, and it was only 2 quarts low, so it wasn't like he ran it a long time, but it did pick up a rod knock, and which seems to be a common issue on these trucks. They probably ran really tight clearances on something that's doing a lot of excessive heavy work, where you should open up the clearances. So we'll see. I think that, as Mike said, it was a huge win. We got all the extra parts that we didn't have before. I've got a spare set of heads, a spare intake manifold, all the spare covers, because on that engine, Chevrolet did kind of mimic the LS engine. It's got a cast aluminum oil pan, cast aluminum timing cover, cast aluminum valve covers, and it does have it's the only big block with cathedral port heads on it. So these motors were really workhorse engines. I mean, all your gas-powered late model Class A motorhomes, big motorhomes, 32, 36 footers, that's the motor that comes in them. The 8.1 with an Allison. If you were going to buy a 2500 or 3500 Silverado from, I think this motor ran from 2001 to 2009. That was the engine if you wanted gas. And the early versions of the Duramax, like my truck, mine's a 2002. The 8.1 made the same horsepower and the same torque as the diesel. So that really that's going to be really cool to see how it works out in his thing. See, I got a little warning. I hope the video is streaming okay for you guys. I got a little warning from it's buffering. Apologize about that. I'll have to see what it basically looks like. We'll leave it in the high range, and it'll be able to roll down the highway really well. Probably 75, maybe almost 80 mile an hour, although that's too fast for a truck like that carrying that much weight. But it'd be nice to be able to, pass somebody if you had to pass somebody. And then, of course, going through the mountains, if you take I-75 from Florida and 24 through Tennessee to get to Nashville and Bowling Green, you got to go through Mount Eagle, which is a pretty steep mountain, so you'd have speed going up the hills. So we'll see. Fingers crossed. I think it'll be a good way. Man, I see on my notes from YouTube that we're having a real issue here with streaming. Let me kill some of these. I'll put my screen back up. So I try to kill all the background stuff, see if that helps any. Still doing it. Well, I don't know what to do. For some reason, we're having a bad connection tonight. I really apologize about that. Mike said on here, is that the truck you did a video a couple of years ago driving back to Florida? Yes, that was the truck. So anybody that wants to check out the race car hauler, you can look up the C60 Will It Make It video from about 3 years ago. This thing was rough. Okay, good. Bill says the video is good there. Yeah, they keep throwing a yellow warning over the top of the screen, so I don't know what's going on there. When Scott got that truck. That was a real kick in the nads. When a couple of years we went to LS Fest, and he first started hauling his cars around because he didn't want to trust him to drive 1,500 miles to a show. He would run a U-Haul truck, and use my trailer. Hey, Chris. I see Chris is in. And so he got a quick learning of how to tow a car on a trailer. And I told him, this is what you should do. Is you should buy a trailer, you should buy a truck. And he really didn't want to go that way. And then he had this wild idea. A buddy of his bought a Winnebago motorhome and cut the back off, and was putting ramps inside to make it a hauler. We've seen plenty of racers do that with school buses, but Scott is a great guy, but he can't do that. He could orchestrate it, but he couldn't do the actual fabrication it would take to get it done. And then with the way shops are, who knows? It would probably end up in shop jail for a couple of years till it got done. So we were looking around on Racing Junk, and I found this Olnick hauler. And I've used Olnick haulers before. It was a big deal in the 70s and late 60s and all through the 70s and the early 80s. If you were a national racer, either in an amateur class, sportsman class, or a pro, like in pro stock, these Olnick race car haulers were the bomb. Olnick was a truck box manufacturer, and they would put in the hardwood floors and made a big ramp with a built-in winch and all this stuff, and slide in ramps and stuff. So you'd open the back door and put your ramps out and winch your car up into your trailer. So you had an enclosed trailer in one vehicle. And then, of course, guys like Jerry Alt with this truck that Scott purchased, they made a pass-through the back window into the back, put a sleep. Great. You could have 2-3 guys go race to race, and somebody could be crashing and sleeping while the other two are driving. So you could do driver swaps to, anybody that's raced long distances, like I did back when we were racing the Pro Mod, 2-3 drivers, and you could get, you could drive around the clock. So you could get to South Florida to St. Louis, Missouri in 24 hours because we just drive straight through. We just keep rotating drivers, and we pretty much always did it by fuel stop. Everybody drove one tank of fuel. So anyway, so we're thumbing through Racing Junk trying to find Scott a vehicle, and we see the truck, and the pictures are great. And we're like, man, this thing's clean and everything. And so Scott talks to the owner, and the owner was some type of doctor, and he raced in a stick shift class up in Ohio. And he got a good feeling the guy was a straight shooter, and the guy told him that the truck hadn't been used in a while, but it was a good truck. So he didn't say anything about the pictures or anything, so we just assumed the pictures were current. So Scott buys the truck sight unseen. That was bad on him, and I go up to see family all the time in Ohio. Well, come to find out, the truck shop where this truck was only about 45 minutes from my in-laws. So I went ahead and drove over to it and was dumbfounded when I saw the truck. The thing was rough, and I didn't know what to do. I mean, it had roof leaks. It was wood, water damage inside the back of the truck, and crazy stuff. And so that's where we were with that thing. Come to find out, the truck was originally from Dayton, but it lived in California for a number of years. The guy from car covers, was it Custom Car Covers? He ran Comp Eliminator also. He had the truck and used it to haul show cars around in California. And the pictures that were posted on Racing Junk were actually the pictures of when he bought that truck. And he had used it for a number of years and then sold it to the doctor, and the truck got transported back to Ohio. Well, unfortunately, the doctor did not show current pictures. So anyway, that's a long story. Go back and watch that video. You can see the condition it was in at that point. I was very concerned it was going to make it all the way back to Florida, but I had flown up, and originally my wife and I drove up, and we were going to put our Trailblazer in the back and then drive it home, and then we would have a vehicle to chase parts if it broke down. But the truck shop did not have the truck done in time. They didn't really. I asked them to do a preventive maintenance check on the truck. Well, they didn't, and there was all kinds of issues. It wouldn't have gone around the block, let alone back to Florida. So we asked it home, which I had no vehicle with me at that point. But anyway, I see Norb is on. Hey, did you ever try to use Excel version 6.15 on a 3.2 or lower ECU? No, I haven't. I don't have it. I don't know of anybody in my area that has that old of a version firmware. Since I started putting stuff on the Facebook page that you created, Norb, and I started putting some of my videos on LinkedIn, a guy, Steve, reached out to me, and he was one of the chief engineers, or software engineers, that actually did the firmware and the software for Excel. He actually worked for Excel, and then when it was purchased by by MSD, he left, or maybe even before that. But anyway, I've been working with him. We've been trying to get some scaling done for newer wideband boxes and stuff, and he's been playing around with he still had original software code in one of his computers, so he's been playing around with that. He actually made a Gen 7 7.0 software, so we haven't tried it or anything, but he's playing around with it. He says he has access, it does work. So I asked him about the 6.15, and he thought that they had always reverse engineered all those levels of firmware to work with all of previous firmware. I hope I said that right. So this 6.1.5 software was supposed to be reverse engineered to work with all previous firmwares. So we all know, and you do too, Norb, that it'll work with 4.0 and newer. We know that. But it's supposed to work on the earlier stuff. So we're going to have to just get somebody that maybe is in the Facebook group that has an older version and have them try it and see how it works. And if it doesn't, maybe we can, maybe I can reach out to Steve and see. He wouldn't have any firmware or any ECUs to test with. The other thing I could do, I just thought of, I could reach out to Jason, who was the repair person at Excel. When you sent an ECU back to Excel for repair or for a firmware update, my buddy Jason was the guy that handled all that, and he was doing repair work up until about 4 years ago on the ECUs. Unfortunately, before he left Cleveland, he's out now, lives in, I think, Atlanta, but he had his basement flooded one storm, and all the equipment that he had for doing the testing, he had the test unit that Excel originally had, so he could plug in and run system tests and all that. That unit got damaged, so he really kind of got out of the repair business because there was no way he could diagnose or test to see if a system was working properly or not. And of course, that was he also had the equipment for doing firmware flashing, and that unfortunately was damaged before during the MSD transaction. There was a lot of craziness back in those days. The people in Cleveland, rightfully so, weren't very happy with the Holly takeover and all that. So there was some crazy stuff went on. But anyway, yeah. So I think one salesman from Mr. Gasket left the Cleveland area and went to work at Holly when they bought it out. Nobody else left. So kind of shows you there was some mixed feelings there. We'll just leave it at that. But anyway, yeah, Norba, we'll have to reach out to some of the guys on the Facebook page and see if we can find somebody that has an older unit. I'm trying to think of all the files I have. So I've got a bunch of, I don't know if I put them up on the Facebook page in the file section, but I've got a bunch of tunes that were written at Excel on a dyno. So they would get a project, somebody would bring a car up or an engine up to Wixom to the R&D facility, and they would go ahead and dyno the engine and write a tune for it, like when they were doing the Gen 8 ignition system. So obviously they were doing LSs when they had that ignition box conversion. But they did a bunch of stuff. I got 572 supercharged tunes and some, different 302 twin turbo and all kinds of various things. Anyway, I'll if I didn't put those tunes on the file section, I'll put them on. But I know that I went through a bunch of them. There was a couple Ford modular EDIS systems on there, and I know a lot of those were firmware 3.2s, and they still obviously they worked on the 6.15. So we know for sure it'll go all the way back to 3.2. Just don't know about anything older than 3.2, which I think there was only 1.0 and 2.0. I don't think there was any other, maybe 2.1, and then they went to the 3 and the 3.2. So probably isn't a whole bunch of them out there, but it should, like I say, it should work on all the 3.2s because I've got a bunch of tune files that were written with 6.15 at Excel on their dyno on 3.2 firmwares. So we'll see how that works out. I do have I have one guy's ECU off the Facebook group that had a bad coil driver on it, and I did the box at this point is no good. So I reached out to Jason, and he actually was kind of interested in seeing if he could fix it. So we'll see how that works out. Maybe we might better twist his arm and get him back into doing some simple repairs. If you have a resistor or something going out. His biggest concern was he didn't have the test equipment anymore to quantify that the repair is good. So we'll have to see where that goes, and I'll have to reach out to him. I know at one point he had a couple 4.0 firmware circuit boards. They weren't in enclosures, but they were brand new circuit boards that were left over that they never got put into an installation. So I'll have to find out from him if he still has that stuff. Try to keep this stuff going alive. It's great. It was a great engine management system. I still have guys that run it and tune it. And I help people tune it. So I've got a guy right now with a IMSA Argo rear engine stumbling around. It was a IMSA GTP lights car. So back in the day, in the 90s, the GTP and GTP light. GTP were V8 natural aspirated or V6 turbocharged, and then the GTP lights were 4-cylinder turbocharged and 6-cylinder natural aspirated. And I've been working with a guy that's got one of those with the Buick V6 in it, the 3.8 style engine. It actually has I think a 4.4 Lozano Bush Cup motor in it. So we've been working on that. He had the motor freshen and trying to get a good tune working on that. So we'll see where that goes, and hopefully we'll figure out this stuff with the with the software. And I do, if anybody is messing with that stuff and they want to get a system working with with a different wideband. So we know that the Excel wants to see 0 equals 10 AFR, 5 volt equals 20 AFR. That's the scaling that the generic scaling that it will understand. And the reason that Holly did that was pretty smart, because you could use a voltmeter, and your volts would be your AFR. So if it was running 14 volts, it would be 14.0 AFR. Pretty clever there. But anyway, there's a lot of systems out there now that have good units, good wideband units, but they don't have configurable analog outputs. TurboJixer, we're talking about the old Excel DFI stuff. You came in late, yeah. So anyway, so with this guy Steve's help, he has written some. He's able to write the scaling for a custom sensor. Now I know if you have a Pro key, you can get into the custom volt versus UEGO calibration table, but a lot of people don't have the Pro keys, so he's able to write it and put it into the code for us, and then so I send him a file, he puts it in, and then I can send the file back to the end user, and it'll already be configured for whatever wideband they want to use. And we just did that with this guy's Buick Argo, because he was the early legacy AEMs had the output that was correct for Holly, or for Excel DFI, but the newer stuff does not. And this guy had a newer unit, and his EGTs were really high, and I'm like, we need to verify that your wideband reading is right, because it's saying the engine's rich, and I just don't understand it. And the unit that he had did not come with a gauge, so he's using the Excel as a gauge. So I did some research. I found the scaling that it was correct for. I sent some files to Steve. He looked at the files, said no, the transfer corrections were not done for that unit. He made the corrections. I sent the file back to Bob, and he did a test yesterday, and the tune that I written for him, which was showing rich before, now shows almost spot on at the point that he was testing at. So that kind of quantifies that what Steve's doing with the wideband recalibration is working. So that's great news, because that's an issue. Is if you can't, the only two units that I know of that will work with the generic the generic Excel is the Innovate LC1 and 2, which are kind of cheesy, and Daytona sensors. Theirs has programmable analog outputs. So those units you can use, but I've had a customer that had one of their units in there, and it's crashed 2 times, and now they wouldn't even fix it. So he was going to have to buy their newer style, which their newer style units are potted. You can't fix them, so that doesn't make any sense to me either. So kind of don't like having to be stuck with those 2 choices. So now we have more choices. The Spartan works. Okay, I haven't heard of the Spartan unit, so that may be another good unit for that. So I'll do some research on that, and we can put that on the forum on Facebook and let people know. So I mean, as you guys know, obviously TurboJixer and Norbs know. I mean, you guys do tuning, so if somebody can give you a data log with a wideband and it's accurate, you can send them a file and fix a lot of stuff. Without a wideband, you're stuck. You have no idea what to do. So it's really important to be able to put a wideband on, and that has been one of the issues with the older Excel systems, that if they didn't have a wideband, they were kind of stuck. And the people that did have the engine analyzer package, they're getting, if your sensor crashes, you can't get another sensor. So that sounds good. Turbo Jixer says he used the Spartan. It works very well. That's cool. Google 14.7 Spartan. Okay, good. Very DIY though. Yeah, so that's a problem for a lot of people because I mean they're barely DIY enough to even get in the software and make changes. That's why I keep coming up with new videos for an old system. It at least helps them. I can refer them to a video and they can at least know how to send a data log and how to set it up and how to tune if they want to get into that. So you can change the scaling, but it's a multiplier. Okay, so yeah, so you're gonna have to think about it a little bit. It's not as easy as just setting up a 0 to 5 volt 1D table. Yeah, so that'll be the good thing is now we can use the now that Steve can write those changes, the calibration changes in the software for us. We can use the AFM 500s, which is the NTK box. It's supposed to be a very robust box for high level of accuracy. So sorry about that. But yeah, so that's those are the things we're getting into. I have to check my my last video about using the Windows 10 because I realized, Norb, I saw you talking to another guy, a couple guys when they were having problems with the serial to USB adapter, and I didn't realize that the serial USB adapters there's different models of it, so to speak. So you got USB 1, 2, and 3. So that's one thing, and I just ran in that on a race pack unit on Rihanna 2.0, is that you have to have a late model USB serial adapter if you're going to use it in a Windows 10 or 11 computer. They will not talk to the earlier style units. So always learning on it. So hopefully I gotta go back to the video I made and check and see that the unit that I put on there is the correct part number. So if it's not, I will go back and correct that. But you have to use a CMD. So I don't know what the CMD is. That must be a program in your computer to make the changes. I'm not sure. But yeah, if you have a good ECU, the system still works good. And I do have the guy that had the Daytona units that he threw his hands up with the Daytona units. He has a couple late model firmware boxes, ECUs. He's got a complete custom harness he made for a Cobra kit car. He's got I think 1 or 2 Ford dual syncs. I think he's got a Chevy dual sync. So he went ahead and upgraded to the Holley HP system. So I told him to list them on there, but not sure if it works with Windows 11. Yeah, I don't have a Windows 11 yet. Okay, CMD is a command prompt. Gotcha. All right, yeah. So I scratched the information. I scratched the surface with computers and information. I'm still not super in depth with that. I've been trying to figure out how to use a CAD program to draw some adapters and stuff, and it's beyond me. I just don't have the time to put into it. So a lot of this stuff is trial and error. I got a Windows 10 computer, my 7. The batteries wouldn't even stay charged at all. I had to keep it plugged in. Obviously, I can't drive a car around with the extension cord. So when I got the Windows 10, I had to figure out how to make it work on the Excel. So I did, and with the adapters I was currently using, it worked. So that's how kind of I came up with that video, is just used what I knew worked. But I've seen, Norb, I've seen it. You had said, some weren't working with they didn't have the right chipset in it. Get someone to build a Gen 7 Yeah, 7 comm cable. That would be a killer if we could get that. You know what? I'll talk to Steve. I wonder if he has some of the board, the engineering on the chip that was in the cable. That would be good. You know, and I had another thought too, as far as the wideband. If anybody's got some of those old boxes, the engine analyzer boxes, we could probably get Glenn Payne at Payne Racing to see if he could figure out the calibration for the NTK sensors for those, because he does calibrations on the Holly units. So he has some kind of test rig that he's built, because I've sent him some sensors and he'll tell me what AFR range do you want the most accuracy at, and because Holly does the same thing, they put a resistor in the harness of the O2 sensor. So he'll take a brand new NTK or Bosch, either one, and run it on his test bench and put the proper resistor to make, if it's a whatever your lambda is that you're going to be racing, you're running the car at. Now mainly he's working with race cars, so methanol and E85 and race gas and stuff like that. So you'll tell him, hey, I want real good accuracy at 12.5 gas. Basically I think 0.88 lambda. He'll put the resistor in so that the scaling works the whole range, but is very accurate at that point. So if he's got that unit, we could probably send him some instructions on, or I could even make a wiring harness test rig for the for an engine analyzer, and he could run. Maybe he could figure out the right resistors for the NTKs to get those back working again. And then he could sell them. He could make some money off of that, and we'd be able to keep those engine analyzers working, because they were really good, because you could data log 12 points instead of 6. So that was really good. But yes, Norb, I will reach out to Steve and see if he's got any information on those harnesses, or maybe if he can point us in the direction, because that is one of the things. There's a lot of guys that have boxes with no cables, and without a cable, you're stuck. and unfortunately, John Meany's theory was to make that all proprietary. I don't know why they couldn't just make a USB cable, like everybody else does, and make it universal. Had to put that chipset in there so that you had to buy the cable from them. It was great for selling parts, but now that the systems are dead, now we got big problems there. So I will work on that, and we'll see what happens with that. Glad you guys got on here. Glad we got some stuff on here about the Excel stuff. I know the rest of you guys that aren't using it probably are like, crazy. You guys are talking about something that was 20 years old, but it was a really good system. And I've always said all ECUs do the same thing. They all fire the injectors for fuel and control timing for control spark for timing. It's just how hard it was to get from an empty box to a tuned car. And the Excel system for back in the day was a pretty good unit, very robust and worked well. But obviously computer systems have gotten better. The newer systems are even better, but if you got one, it still works. And, there's no reason to pull all that stuff out of your car just to have the newest thing on the market, as long as we can keep these things alive. So, yeah, so TurboGixer is probably right. It was probably about money. We know that because if you go to big stuff, anything you want to change in big stuff, you have to pay for. If you want to change your ignition IPU, you have to pay for it. If you want to add data logging through your race pack, you have to send it back and you have to pay for it. So that's definitely John Meany's MO. I don't know the guy, except for he was involved with the Excel when I started as an EMIC back in '95, but I never had any direct dealings with him or anything like that, so I don't want to say too much more than what I know, because I don't know. But yeah, it just seems that's his MO. Norb, yeah, it was a nightmare. So hopefully we can get some stuff going with that. I'll work on that. Yeah, the only thing it didn't have was the learning part. So, but if you had the wideband and you did data log, it's really easy to do the math and go cell by cell and make the corrections. So it wasn't that terrible. But nevertheless, it's after 8, so I guess we'll go ahead and cut it off tonight. I really apologize if you guys were getting a lot of buffering. I don't know. I guess we just have a bad Xfinity may have cut down on the speed, output speed or something. I'll check that once I close up here, because I've got everything shut down in my computer, so I don't know YouTube. So right, learning as in long-term trim. Right, Excel had short-term trim, which they called closed-loop fueling, but it was not there was no records kept. It was just a knee-jerk reaction. Whereas Holly has closed loop, which is your short-term, and then they have learning as your long-term. So, I mean, that's basically all they did was add learning to it. But still a very good system for back in the day. So anyway, we'll go ahead and close out. You guys have a good evening. Thanks for getting on here. Yeah, Norb was getting buffering. If you have a good fuel model, long-term does not do much. Right. That's my always thought was you tune open loop from your actual AFR versus your target AFR until you are within 5% of correction, and then you put your short-term trim or your closed loop fueling if you're dealing with an Excel, and you let it run from there. Long-term, you really shouldn't be using that. So that's just for wear and tear. So anyway, that's it for tonight. Thanks everybody again. If you guys didn't get a chance, check out the new AMC turbo engine build. Leave comments on the format that I built that on. See if it's if the video makes sense, and if you think I should change the way I do it, and we'll go from there. Norb, good seeing you tonight too. Bill, we'll hook up with this TPS issue, and Chris, where are we at with that supercharger, man? Anyway, all right, guys, good night. We'll do this again next Tuesday. See ya.